Start streaming. I've just hit the button. So this is the part where I go and I take a look over here and I listen to see whether or not this actually works. So this is where I check to see whether the sound is actually working. Okay, so this is a sound check actually. So if you're watching this at the moment, this is a sound check, all right? This is me checking to see whether the sound works. So let me see. Ha ha! The sound check actually works. This is fantastic. So here, let me do this, okay? Well, actually, let me do this first of all. Let me do this by putting my big face up on the screen for a second and saying that I want to start off by welcoming you to Cooking with Linux Without a Net, which is me doing cool Linux and free software stuff live, which means if something's going to go wrong, you get to see it. And you also, you know, and also I get to share some wine with you, which, well, I will talk about the wine in a second. But first, we must do the official introduction. So I'm going to transition away from here. I'm going to do the official introduction, and I'm going to say, yes, I'm using mplayer from the command line, dash full screen, CWL, oops, LJ intro. Ready? Here we go. There we go. There we go. That worked out well. At least I think it worked out well. Anyway, okay. So again, I want to thank Linux Journal for making this possible, and I want to thank you all for being here. And you know how this works. Join in. There's a chat there. There's a chat which you can take part in. And hello there, Stuart. Hello, Damon. Hello, John. Glad to have you here today. I'm drinking a Naked Grape Shiraz, and just for the record, this is not like, you know, this doesn't make it adult content. This is like, it's a wine. It's called Naked Grape, as in I don't know why it's called Naked Grape, but it doesn't matter. I just cracked it open. This is actually a fresh bottle, so let's pour ourselves some wine here. Because, you know, that's part of what the show is. It gives me an excuse to drink wine on a Tuesday at lunch. All right, and I can get away with it. I can tell, I can say, well, you know I was drinking wine, but it's part of what I have to do. So anyway, cheers. Not bad. Not as spicy as Australian Shirazes are, but it does have that little bit of pepperiness to it. It's actually, it's not very spicy at all. It's hard to imagine this as a Shiraz, to be perfectly honest. It's a nice wine, though. Nice drinking wine. Nice color. Not particularly deep red, but nice little ruby color. Anyway, that is our wine for today. And today, oh, by the way, if you are in the chat, please, I know because some of you have already said hi, but if you're in the chat, please ask questions, talk to each other, be part of the conversation, be part of what's happening. So today I want to start off by doing some video editing. Now you can all see, I'm gonna full screen this for a second here. First of all, I'm gonna transition, and so that you don't see my face on the big screen. But this is OBS. This is OBS Studio, Open Broadcasting Studio, and as you can see down here, there's an option for streaming. There's an option for recording, and just before I did the show, I actually recorded a small video clip, and I've got my Linux Journal introduction. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that stuff, and I'm going to create a little video. So we're going to put a little video together. We're going to do some transitions, and I'm going to show you what it is that I do with this stuff, you know, when I'm trying to put it together. Now, I use a variety of tools, but my number one go-to tool for this stuff is actually something called Kdenlive, which is a linear, actually, I actually think it stands for KDEN, Kdenlive. Live linear video editor. Yeah, there we go. Live actually doesn't stand for live. It stands for linear video editor. So I'm going to show you how that works and how easy it is to actually put together a video with it. Okay. So I'm going to minimize this and make this whole part disappear. So bye for the moment. There we go. Down it goes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize this as well. Now, if you take a look down here, you'll see that there's a file down here. See this one down here? It says 2018 6/19 12/01/44. That's the one that I made just a couple of minutes ago, just before the show started, okay? But does the wine pass the test? Chin knows. All right, well, let's find out, since this is BS. It has a nice nose. It's actually very nice, but it's not particularly deep. It's more fruity than anything else, which is why it doesn't make me think of a Shiraz. I mean, it's quite enjoyable. It's a nice wine, but definitely not a typical Shiraz in my mind. You know, almost more like except for the fact that it does have that little bit of spiciness to it. It's almost more like a red table wine, almost, to be perfectly honest. Although, again, it is quite enjoyable. It's got I call it a medium finish. It's got some nice tannins there, but a medium finish. Not particularly long on the tongue. Well, yeah, it's holding a little longer than I thought. Anyway, it's nice. It's nice. All right, so let's do this. Let's do this. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to go into Kdenlive, the video editor that I was telling you about. All right. And there we are. And when this whole thing starts up, there are some defaults that you can set it up with. Now, I'm using a 1080p, basically 30 frames per second. This is the default that I'm using for this. And if I'm making a YouTube video, this is also what it is that I want to actually be working with, okay? So this is the default setup for a YouTube, or what I would call a YouTube video at this point. I can have multiple video streams. I typically work with just 2. Even if I use more than 2 video clips, I typically just work with a couple of layers of video. And of course, we can also have just straight audio files. So if I want to have like MP3 files or OGG files or whatever that I want to include into the video, I can add that stuff down here. Let's go right from scratch just so you can see what's happening there. I'm going to say add clip. And I'm going to say add clip, and I'm going to take this one that I recorded just to actually, let's start out with, there's one here that says something went wrong. I'll show you that in a second. But let's start with the Cooking with Linux LJ intro, the one that you see at the beginning there, okay? Or that you see me playing at the beginning there. There's the Cooking with Linux introduction, and I'm going to add another clip, and that's going to be the 2018 one that I created just before the show started. All right, so there we go. So we've got the 2 clips there. Now over here, this is our preview window that we can see over here. And to actually start creating the thing, I want to drag one of these guys into the timeline. Okay, and I'm going to push this right to the very beginning of the timeline. So if I actually hit the play button here, that is the whole clip, all right? So let me drag the one that I started creating a little bit earlier here, okay? And what I want to show you is I'm going to go right back here, okay? And you'll notice that, in fact, I could put it on the same line here if I wanted. In fact, let's do that. Actually, let's put a break in between just so you can see what happens. So let's start it again while I have a sip of wine. Okay, that part there is not actually me doing the introductory test. This is the test of the test that I was going to do at the beginning of the show. All right? Okay. So there you go. So you notice that there was a blank in there, right? So if I go back over here, there's like empty space in between, which typically we would not want to do. So if I actually just put the 2 together like this, see, we just jump immediately from the video into this. Actually, let me see if I can drag this down a little bit here so that you have a, there we go, so that we have a bigger window there, because really I'm not going to use, a separate, well, actually I'm going to use a separate audio, we'll find out. But there we go, so we've got a bigger window. And over here, we've got, information on the particular clip that I'm working with. I'm going to turn that off. But there are a whole bunch of effects that Kdenlive comes with by default. And, some of them are things like this. Some of the ones that you're going to use, or that I use regularly, are things like this. So let's go right back to the beginning of the clip. Okay, so let's go right back to the beginning of the clip. And in fact, I'm going to move this one over here for a second just so that we can see this part. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here to where it says fade. There are a bunch of fade effects. So I will say fade from black. Okay, and if I drag down here, fade from black, by default, actually let me expand this window a little bit. By default, there's a 2-minute or 2.15 seconds or 2.15 seconds fade from black that happens at the beginning. So if I hit play again now, okay, that was actually very short, and of course it starts, I'm already fading in from that video, so let's actually drag that one over here for a second here, and I'm going to put this one at the, I'm going to put this one at the beginning, and we're going to go right to the beginning here. So let's drag that right to the beginning here, and fade from black. I'm going to put it on this one here now. Okay, there we go. Okay, this is a Okay, you see the fade in there? You saw the fade in? All right, now we could drag this if I wanted to make this a little bit longer. Let's make it a 5-minute fade in from black. And you notice how this is actually getting a little bit longer here. So take a look down here where it says video 3, which interestingly enough is the first video in the list. All right, if I drag this guy down here, you'll see that the fade from black goes longer and longer. You see that? All right, and let's make it 4 seconds. And actually, let's make it, whoops, let me go back to the beginning there. Go back to the beginning, and I'm going to drag this a little bit longer. And now, if I hit play, okay, this is a test. This is a test. In fact, see the fade is much longer. Now, let me stop this and back out. There is, of course, if we wanted to get rid of this at this point, I could just dump this. So we could get rid of the fade from black as well here. You'll notice that if I stretch it a little bit further, there's a little garbage can here, delete effect. Let's get rid of the effect. All right, sorry about that. I've had just so that you're aware as to why I'm making these crazy sounds like the coughing. There are people that have been doing work in my house all week. So there have actually been people doing work in this house for a whole week now, and there's a lot of dust in the air. So I apologize if I occasionally cough. Oh, somebody at my front door. That's probably Amazon delivering a package because that's what they do. All right, fade to black. So let's do a fade to black here. Okay, actually, let me get rid of the fade to black for a second. And we're going to go right to the end of my test clip here. Here we go. Okay, and that was the end of my test clip, okay? So let me go back over here, and now I'm going to do a fade to black. And the fade to black, again, defaults to 2.15 seconds, okay? So let's just drag that out a little tiny bit here, and let's drag it out to the, I don't know, the 4 seconds there. And if I hit play, manager, and that's all going to be part of my test, okay? All right, here we go. And there we go. It fades. It fades to black, and we can have a fade in and a fade out and stuff like that. But I tend to like the fade to and from black. And I do tend to include that. Now, often, I don't always do it at the beginning, but I always fade to black at the beginning. At the end. I always fade to black at the end because it's a thing. Now, one other thing. Now, you heard, I don't know if you're actually hearing this very well at the moment when I'm playing the clip, but let's go back up, I don't know, let's go, where are we here? So the clip that I'm going to use is the one that you're watching right now, which is that. Okay, so that's the one. Now, the other thing that I do on a regular basis is over here. There are a whole bunch of audio things in here, okay? And honestly, there are tons and tons and tons of effects in here. And I'm going to invite you to play with them, but obviously, given how much time we've got to play with here, I'm not going to tell you all of them, but one of the ones that I do use on a regular basis is over here. We can change the gain, okay, so I can adjust the audio volume, but the one I like to use is normalize, dynamically normalize the audio volume. And again, it's just a matter of clicking on this thing and dragging it down into the clip here. Now, if I press play again, the one that you're watching right now, which is actually a test before I actually go online and... Okay, so right now you can tell that that's a lot louder, but what it's done is it's taken a sample of the entire clip and it's adjusted the volume in a way that is, hopefully, if you'll pardon the expression, normalized across the entire clip. And you notice that there are some things there, maximum gain across it, 100% gain, maximum gain is 1,000%. In other words, we're not going to go any higher than that. But of course, we could manipulate this just by dragging this thing back and forth across the system. See that? And I'm going to get rid of it one more time, but I'm going to go back and set it up for the defaults here. So we've got that one effect. We've got the normalize effect, but I'm going to go back to the fade effect, and I'm going to say fade to black, and I'm going to put that in there. So now we have the video is normalized, and we have fade to black as well. Now, let me do one other thing here. See, if I right-click on here where it says fade to black, if I right-click, I can say add effect to favorites. So if there are effects that I'm going to use on a regular basis, remember what I said? There are tons of these things, like literally tons of these things. Like there are so many things that you can do with video. It's just amazing, including obviously, as you can see down here, change the speed. But anyway, like tons and tons of things. But if you don't want to have to remember all these things, like let's say that you use, like me, primarily normalize and fade effects, I could say add effect to favorites, and then I have just the ones that I use on a regular basis down here. All right? Okay, so let's go back to this whole clip here, and I'm going to take it back to the beginning. Well, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to put the introduction back over here. And in fact, I'm going to, on this particular clip, I'm going to remove the fade. And we're going to start out with a clip directly. And now, as you can see, or as you saw over here, when we get to the end here, see, we just jumped directly into it. What I like to do is I like to do a crossfade between the first clip and the second clip, or for that matter, multiple clips. I like to do the crossfade, you know, because it looks a little bit more natural. Now, the other thing that's happening up here, so let me click play again.
Okay, this is a test.
Okay, so obviously...
Test. In fact, I'm going to transition the webcam over so that, you know, I'm sitting right in the middle here. This is...
Okay, so just before I transition the webcam here, just as I'm doing this, so let me move it forward just a little tiny bit. There we go. So I'm just about to transition the webcam. So let's say that this is where I transition the webcam. I can use the scissors here, and I can go right up to here, and I can clip this thing. Now, I go back and I select this one here, and I delete it. So now, when this clip starts...
Right in the middle here.
Okay. So, and I apologize for the skipping and so forth, but I'm streaming and editing at the same time, so it gets a little bit weird. So, okay, so I'm going to take this clip and I'm going to put it down here. See that? And the default transition is the easiest in the world to do. See where it says click to add a transition? You click to add a transition, and now you're going to see that there's a little, I don't know how well you can see that there, but there's a little tiny yellow bar in between the two. So if I go over here and I click my introduction,
right in the middle here. This is a test. The whole point of the test is...
Okay, did you see that? Did you see how we faded from one to the other? Now, if I want to make that a little bit longer, I can just drag it. See how the little yellow bar is changing in size as I move it across? So let's say that I want the transition to be a little bit higher there.
Right in the middle here. This is a test. The whole point of the test is...
All right, so, and the same thing can happen at the end, to, you know, typically if I'm doing something like this.
Machine manager, and that's all going to be part of my test, okay?
Okay, now let's say that I actually want to stop it where I said, okay, at the end there. Again, I can take the scissors, I can go right here, and I can clip this last part, and I can hit delete, and away that goes. And now we've got a clip with an introduction. We've got a, whoops, let me get rid of the scissors here. We've got a clip with the introduction. We've got a, you know, the default crossfade. And I did that by taking this clip and dragging it down to the second line where the video, where it says video down here. And now I have a transition between the two. And of course, I went and normalized the sound on here. As you can see, the normalize is happening there. But maybe I want to do that on the first clip as well. And you'll notice that it's not on the first clip, so I will add it to the first clip. And let me see, did I do that already? There we go. There we go. And I've got normalize in the first clip, so if I go right back to the beginning there,
right in the middle here. This is a...
Okay. Obviously, you know, this I didn't go out of my way to make this the coolest and highest quality test clip, but there you go. Hold tight for a second. Dry throat. I must have a sip. Ah, thank you. Thank you. That feels much better. If you've got some, you know, chat, if you've got something to say in the chat room, please, by all means, jump in, ask questions, say things. And the next thing that I am going to do now is I'm going to show you. So let's say that this is the video and I think that it's absolutely brilliant and I love this thing. The next step is to render this thing. Now, obviously I've got a bunch of clips that have been, oh, actually let's close that for a second, because the next thing that I really should tell you to do is, assuming of course that this is more interesting than what I'm doing here at the moment. In other words, this is actually something that you want to save, okay? You're going to want to do a save as down here, you know, and I'm going to go over to, oh, I've got Kdenlive here, but let's go over to recordings for the second, and I'm just going to call this CWL no net test. All right, we know what that is, right? Cooking with Linux without a net, save. And now if something terrible and horrible happens and it's like, oh no, I've crashed my system, I can go back in and I can fire up Kdenlive, and if I'm telling the truth, I should be able to go to recent, and there it is, and I can go back into the video that I just created. And let's go back up here. So there we go. So we still got the video that we created. So now you've saved it in case something disastrous happens and in case you want to edit it later. And maybe this is a project that you're working on for so many years. All right, well, okay, so many hours as opposed to 5 minutes. Okay, so now we can click render. Now we can click render. And by default, it does WebM. Now, what you really want to do if you're uploading this to YouTube or if you're sharing it with friends and family and all that sort of stuff is you're going to want to do MP4. I mean, let's be honest here. You're going to want to do MP4. So we're going to call this one CWL test, CWL LJ test. There we go, LJ test. And I'm going to put it back in the recordings folder here because that's where we are doing all this stuff, recordings, and I'm going to say, now I can generate the script and then run the script outside of this thing, but typically what I do is I hit render to file, and presumably this shouldn't take more than a few seconds here. So it starts, and 38 seconds, let me see, remaining time 57 seconds. Now we are streaming, so I'm doing multiple things at the same time. All right, this is where, you know, I have another sip, so. Now, if we go down into my folder here and I take a look, you'll see that there's a CWL LJ test MP4 text. The CWL LJ test MP4.text is, you know, the output of this particular render as it is happening. Okay, so you're basically watching the details of the render as it's happening. And of course, I'm slowing this thing down dramatically because I'm doing this in the middle of the show as well. Yes, Tim and I, it looks very fancy. It's actually really kind of neat. Geez, I figured like you should just let this go. Let's see if this actually, let's see what it looks like at the moment, shall we? mplayer, CWL, I don't know how much I'm going to mess this up, but test.mp4. It's not done yet. It's not done yet. I have to be patient. God, I'm not very good at patience. I'm really not very good at patience at all. All right, you know what? While this thing is doing that, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say new tab and I'm going to go cd isos and I'm going to go mv tilde, whoops, tilde downloads because I know that I have a new ISO file here because, whoops, there it is. See? Oh. ArcoLinux. No, that's not the one I wanted. That's not the one I wanted. Where is it? I've got a download happening. Where's my download happening? Arco canceled. How about this one? How about this one? Are you there? Are you there? Kate? Kate? Oh, our render's finished. Arco. This is the next part of what we're doing here. So Arco star.iso dot. All right, so we're going to find out whether this file actually is working because, you know, that scares me a little tiny bit here. Rendering finished. There we go. Rendering finished. Rendering finished. All right, now I'm not going to remove the job at the moment, but I'm just going to click close here, and let's go and take a look here. And whoops, wrong tab. All right. Let's see how well this works out. And see the one that says CWL no test.kdenlive? That's the project file for this thing. Actually, let's take a look at that, you know, just before we do anything else. CWL, ooh, isn't that pretty? Look at that. Look at that. Everything that we need to know about generating this thing. All right, shall we see how well we did? CWL LJ test. You ready?
Right in the middle here. This is a test. The whole point of the test is that you go online and do.
I'm speeding it up.
Transition away, and that's all going to be part of my test. Okay. All right.
There we go. It worked. It worked. We went from scratch with a test file. We edited the thing. We manipulated it. We trimmed it. We added effects to it. We did a transition. We rendered the thing, and we have an MP4 file, which is so amazingly incredible and beautiful that now we can upload it to YouTube, and it's going to go viral and get 17 million views, and I will be able to retire. As if. All right. Okay. So that's it. That's it. I hope you like this little tiny introduction to Kdenlive. That's the basics. Again, you can dig really, really deep into this thing because there is a lot of things, a lot of effects that you can do to this thing. Here, let's try cartoon, and some of them you just play with it. So let's hit play here and see what happens. See what the cartoon effect is.
watching right now, which is actually a test before I actually go online and do the actual show.
Trippy, man, trippy. Anyway, like I said, there are lots of effects, so feel free to try something. Let me get rid of this one here. Let's do one more here. We're going to take this one charcoal, and we're going to put charcoal down here, and we hit play.
So there you go. That's it. So that's going to be cooking with Linux without a net. Real short here, although when...
Neat. All right. Let's try something else. Let's get rid of that one. Again, just play with this thing. Emboss. You know about emboss. Emboss is a classic effect.
So that's going to be cooking with Linux without a net. Real short here, although when you're watching this part, it's going to have already happened. But you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, oh yeah.
And one of my favorites. Let me get rid of that one. One of my favorites, old film.
Yeah, listen, let's fire up some menus while we're at it. Menus. Actually, let me transition away, and off.
There we go. Let me see. Grain. Oh, scratch lines. I love scratch lines. Let's do scratch lines.
With Linux without a net, real short here.
See the scratch lines?
If you're watching this part, it's going to have already.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Damon I. Thank you. Enjoy work. I realize that, you have to, it's 12:30. You got to go back to work for some people. But those of you who are still hanging out here, thank you. Thank you for continuing to hang out. This will obviously be available later on, so we'll check this out later. So the next thing we're going to do, is we're going to do yet another Linux distribution you've never heard of before. And we're going to check it out together, because that's the whole point of doing this stuff live, is we can check it out, and see if we can make this work. So we're going to say use ISO image. I'm going to say browse. And I'm going to go into the ISO, and we are going to try our, where are you? Did I not copy this over? I thought I copied this over. Did I not copy this over? Sure I copied this over. Refresh. There it is. Well, this is very interesting. How come there are two? Oh, there's one that's broken. All right, we're going to take this one here. I'm going to say choose volume. And I'm going to say forward, and we're going to make this 2048, 2048, and give it a couple of my CPU. We'll give it one CPU. That's fine to work with. And we're going to say forward. Going to create a 20 gigabyte disk. Let's just make sure that I actually still have space, because I have this bad habit of not deleting anything. There we go. We got tons of room. This is an SSD on this thing. It's 250. And we're going to call this ArcoLinux. ArcoLinux. And I'm going to say finish. The virtual machine is being created. Are you excited? I'm excited. All right, let's do this. I'm going to minimize this thing, and we're going to say boot ArcoLinux. What do we want to do? Do we want to just boot it? Yeah, we're just going to boot it. There we go. We're going to boot ArcoLinux. So, a brand spanking new Linux distribution that we've never tried before, that we're trying right now, ArcoLinux. And we'll go and check out the website in just a moment here. But this is obviously, from the sounds of it, ARC is an Arch Linux based distribution, and we're going to check out and see what it looks like. Now, we are booting the system, and just so you know, let's go back to Arch Linux. One of the things I thought was interesting when I looked into this one is the creator of ArcoLinux. It's not an Arch Linux, but the creator of ArcoLinux actually has like tons and tons of videos about using their particular distribution, and so you can go to the main site and you can find out all sorts of interesting things about how to work with it, because he has put a lot of interesting things here. I'm going to go back over here and see how we're doing. There we go. Welcome to the ArcoLinux deinstaller. Sure, why not? Let's actually, let me go to full screen here, okay? I'm going to go Control Alt, and I'm going to go to full screen, and we're going to do the install from here, okay? Because we like to do installs of brand new distributions, don't we? There we go, Toronto. That'll work for me, because I don't want to do a French Canada one. Believe it or not, I am I speak French, but we're mostly speaking English here. We mostly speaking English here. I think we're mostly speaking English. Let me see. Erase. This will delete all data on the current storage device. That's fine, because this is a virtual drive. Anyway, what's my name? Let's call me Francois today, shall we? Francois. What is the name of this computer? ARCO. Arco. And then we're going to choose a password. And excuse me, my password is secret. S-E-C-R-E-T. Don't tell anyone. S-E-C-R-E-T. And use the same password for the administrator account. Sure, let's do that. Let's go next. Yes, I know I'm breaking a million rules here, okay? I know that. But, you know, we're trying to get through this quickly. Summary, ArcoLinux, create swap partitions, unsquash file system. Let's see how quickly this magic can happen. Yes, the silence here is me taking another sip of wine. Oh, by the way, I mean, if you've got some out there, please, by all means, feel free to have another sip. I would not be looking to deprive you in any way, shape, or form. Actually, let me. I'm going to say Control Alt, and I'm going to go to the. I'm going to leave full screen mode for a second here, because somebody did ask me in the Linux Journal, and I'm going to show you this. This is the Linux Journal IRC channel on Freenode #Linux Journal. If you want to be part of the action in the Linux world, and you want to see, some people are so impatient. Taps foot patiently. Oh, sorry. Some people are so patient because he was tapping his foot patiently, waiting for it to start. Anyway, dive into virtualization management. I won't dive deep into it at the moment, but one day I should cover a whole pile of different virtual machine management software. But at the moment, the one I'm actually using is Virtual Machine Manager. And Virtual Machine Manager has been around a long, long time, if I remember correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe that this one was actually developed by Red Hat. And it's a graphical interface to QEMU-KVM. And it takes advantage of KVM, or acceleration, basically, built into the processor on your machine. So we actually do have an accelerated build on this thing. Now, there are, as you can see, there are some things here which I have done on previous shows. I'm losing my voice. I apologize for that. Delete. Like I said, there's been so much dust in here lately. It's actually been kind of awful, actually. Okay, I'm going to delete the two files. I'm going to say delete. I'm going to clean up some of these. ArcoLinux, we did last week. I think it was last week we did ArcoLinux. We did Bunsen Linux and Nitrix. So we've actually got a few there. And frankly, if we wanted to, we could actually run multiple machines simultaneously. I don't really want to do that because obviously I am trying to make... Oh, actually, I'm going to close this because I'm probably using up... So I'm going to say save, and I'm going to close this up. I'm probably using processor on this thing as well. So I'm slowing myself down by doing this. Yeah, hopefully the dust in here will clear over the next couple of weeks. And so, let me see. Install. We're using LXDE as the display environment. Oh, 53%. I may have sped things up a little tiny bit here. If that's the case, I apologize for having kept the video editor running in the background and slowing things down. Any questions in the chat while I'm doing this? No? All right. Creating 76%, 83%. Oh, I'm starting to feel pretty good about this. Incidentally, while we're waiting for this to happen, I'm going to go back out and I'm going to thank our host, Linux Journal, and thank you for supporting the show. I sincerely appreciate it. What you can do, other than also going to Linux Journal and supporting the magazine, is to go way down here and see where it says subscribe. Click the subscribe button and get yourself a subscription to it. The other thing that you can do as well, if you want, you can go to Patreon and become a patron of Linux Journal. And if you become a patron, you'll see that there's some, let me see, there's some funky stuff. Yeah, if you become a patron, one of them here, oh, there we go, shout out plus monthly, there we go. For as little as $5 per month, you will get monthly delivery of the magazine. So you can support them on Patreon and get the magazine delivered as well. I think that is awesome. And definitely well worth doing. If you want to catch up on some of the other things I'm doing, you can go to cookingwithlinux.com. And of course, I also have this Patreon button here so that you can support me on Patreon. And of course, youtube.com, which is where you're watching me at the moment, youtube.com/freethinkeratlarge. If you go here, and I'm not gonna let me talk there. This is where you're watching the show. You can watch it live from here. But normally, if there's this subscribe button here, this is a red subscribe button. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. Share with your friends, your family, your neighbors, your dog, your cat, your hamster, your enemies. Share with everybody. Go on to Go on to Reddit. Go on to Reddit and say, hey, Watch this guy's videos, you know, that sort of thing. There we go, all done. See, I managed to kill a couple of seconds while the installation was happening. Shall we find out how this worked? All right, let's click done. And let's wait for it to reboot and take a look at ArcoLinux. Those pauses, of course, are Marcel drinking wine. So let me go up here, Control Alt, and we're going to go back to full screen. Go back to full screen. Live user. Live user. Are we not rebooting? Are we not rebooting? Open a new window, create launcher, desktop settings, desktop settings. Let's take a look at our desktop settings. Wallpaper for my desktop. Menus, include application menu on desktop, right click. Sure, why not? Let's do that. And I'm gonna say close each workspace. I'd have 2 workspaces set up at the bottom here. And if I right click on the desktop now, create document, create folder, applications. There we go. We've got our applications on the desktop. What do we have included with this thing? Let's take a look. Settings for the system accessory. Did we not? There's no wallpaper. There's got to be some wallpaper. Come on, we need some nice wallpaper here. Desktop settings. Do we not include any wallpaper? There's no wallpaper. Menus, icons, appearance, file launcher icons. We need some cool backgrounds. We need some cool backgrounds. Actually, maybe if I go off the live user here and reboot this thing. So let's do a restart. And we're going to say restart right now. And we're going to work off the official fully installed version and see how this goes. ArcoLinux, let's do this. Loading initial RAM disk. I love text boot screens. You know, actually, it's one of those things I miss. Oh, really? Really? Do we actually log in to a text login? Interesting. You remember the password, right? Secret? Seriously? This can't be right. Wow. This can't be right. This can't be right. Sudo -I. Oh my goodness. Secret. Seriously? Service, SDDM, start. No, service. Do we have any kind of display manager installed? MD80M. Looks like we are probably not. Aha, system D apparently. My goodness, did I not reboot properly? Oops, let me go back to this window here. Actually, let me go here. Panel. This can't be right. Okay. All right, let's actually reboot. Maybe I did not reboot. Actually, no, it did reboot. It did reboot. It did reboot, and we did not go into a graphical desktop. Oh my goodness. This is very interesting. This can't possibly be what it boots up into. This wouldn't be right. Oh my goodness. And now, of course, I am drawing a complete blank on how I install packages in ArcoLinux. This is going to drive me crazy. This is actually what we boot up into? This can't be right. Let's do Firefox. Do we have any kind of browser installed in this thing? No, we don't have Firefox. Whoa! What browser would be installed in this by default? This can't be right. This cannot be the only thing that's installed on here. It's just a straight classic X desktop with a few fascinating. I would have thought we'd have LXDE or something like that. Yeah, there we go. We've got a system D system. We've got system D. I was taking a look at init.d. That's not there. Wow. This can't be what this thing boots up into. This cannot be the only thing that's installed when you install this. Wow. Let me just check something out over here. I'm going to go to another window for a second and see. On ArcoLinux. Install alternate desktop on ArcoLinux. Arc theme, different desktop. i3. Is this i3 that we're actually installing here? What have we got? Have we got anything in here? Let's take a look here. I do not see anything that's... Wow, it looks like we've got a pretty, like, this is about as basic a system as we can get. Because we don't seem to have anything else actually installed in here. Let me see. There is a 7-step installation guide, which of course I didn't follow here, you know, to actually go through there. Let's take a look. I mean, it is an Arch Linux system, so let's do a pacman -syu, whoops, syu to update there, and let's see what we got here. Yes, let's do this. Whoa, we've got a lot of packages that, so is it just that the installation did not complete properly? Insufficient columns available for table display. You don't say. Proceed with the installation. Well, apparently there's a lot to install here before we actually have a full system that we can actually operate with. So I'm going to have to just leave it here because I'm not going to wait for it to go through the whole thing. But maybe after this thing has finished installing, we can revisit it next time and see what an ArcoLinux system actually does look like. Because I'm starting to run up against my wall in terms of, you know, in terms of how much time I want to keep you guys waiting for this. All right, so that's what I'm going to do for today. I'm just going to leave it for today. We're going to let this install happen because apparently it's going to take a while. We're only sitting at 10% at the moment, and we'll revisit it on another day. So that's where I'm going to leave it for today. I'm going to go back down here to my original window, but again, please go to Marcel Gagne, or sorry, youtube.com/freethinkeratlarge. Make sure you share this with friends, families, neighbors, all that stuff. Make sure you subscribe. If you're on Reddit or if you're on a Linux user group or something like that, please share this. And, you know, again, you can support Marcel on Patreon, or you can support Linux Journal on Patreon, which would be really, really awesome. Again, thanks to Linux Journal. Thanks to you all for being here. I'm going to go back to my window down here and my OBS Studio window, and I'm going to transition back over here. And I'm going to say thank you, and that's where I'm going to leave it for today. And I promise I'll go back and take a look at ArcoLinux as soon as I've got something resembling a desktop. Cheers! À votre santé et bon appétit. I'm going to push the button now that says stop streaming, okay? See down here? It says stop streaming. This is what I'm going to do. Bye.